So, do you feel bad when you look in the mirror, or maybe you avoid looking altogether? If that's you, then this week's Joyful Eating episode installment is definitely one to check out. So, in it, I'm going to share the secret. I'm sharing the secret of how I did what I previously thought was impossible, how I actually changed my relationship with the mirror. So, I actually feel good when I look at my reflection. And the most surprising part how, is how it wasn't even that hard once I decided to do it. So, welcome to Joyful Eating, episode 189. So, this week we're talking about how I radically changed my relationship with the mirror. So, in this episode, actually, before we get to that, the best bite I had, what has it been? Too many things to choose. Actually, yeah, I know what it was. So, I made this a couple of weeks ago. I made a pistachio and rosewater cake, which was with almond meal and semolina. It was just so beautiful. And then we had some left over, so I'd frozen it. And then last weekend, I got the frozen cake, crumbled it up, and then made a rosewater ice cream, and then stirred the frozen cake through the crumbled cake through the ice cream. And it was so good, like that flavor of like the pistachio with that beautiful aromatic, like fragrant rosewater, like just so good in the mouth. Um, but anyway, let's get on into this week's episode. So in this episode, you're going to discover the story behind this episode. So why I'm doing an episode of my relationship with the mirror, why I wanted to change, and then the exact steps that I took to change, and then actually what it was like after I'd changed, and like what it's actually like when you actually feel okay about what you see in the mirror. It's kind of crazy. And then we're going to finish off with like the first baby step to get you started if it is something that you would like to work on for yourself. So, story behind this episode was basically I actually caught up, was recording an interview with one of my uh, clients, a success story, and she had mentioned something about like how she used to like in the mirror, like when she was looking in the mirror, she wouldn't like ever look at her whole self. She would just like, I'm putting makeup on. I'm just going to look at this one eye, and then I'm just going to look at the lips. And so and just reminded me of how like my relationship with the mirror used to be like so problematic as well. And also like I've had like a couple of people have mentioned to me that that's something that when they're not feeling good in themselves, that they avoid actually like don't look in the mirror. Like they'll like getting dressed and it's like, um, and so that had kind of been on my mind as well. And then actually yesterday I wasn't feeling well and I kind of reverted back to my old ways when I looked in the mirror of like having the critical voice. And I was like, oh, hang on, I've got to nip this in the bud. And so today, like I just decided to start again and, and I was like, oh my goodness, like I looked completely different. Like my experience of looking in the mirror was so different. And I was just like, yes, I need to do a podcast episode on this because I'd forgotten that I had made such a big change. And so it was like having that me reverting to my old ways and then coming back to my like to today being back in the where I actually am happy when I look in the mirror. Uh it was like it's such a contrast, and I was like, "Wow, I need to share this, like, this because I didn't even know that this was possible for decades, like and I was like, "Wow, I could have saved myself so much suffering." So, I'm sharing this so I can save you some suffering as well. So, that's the story behind. So, why I wanted to change my relationship with the mirror, it's been a few years since I did this, and I think it was just one of those things where I was like, "Huh," I was applying like the like coaching style of coaching that I teach, and just, understanding the importance of our thoughts and really seeing that how I could do that and how it played out in, like, changing so many aspects of life, and I was, like, actually noticed one day that, like, I was frowning in the mirror, and it just was not a fun experience looking in the mirror, and I was like, "Huh, I wonder if I start changing my thoughts around this, what would happen?" And it was just come from this kind of curious, "Could this even be a thing? Like, could I even actually stop this, like, does this have to be torturous?" And, so it was just like, I think, like, I wanted to just see if it was possible, just from a curious, like, experimental phase, not actually even knowing if it was possible or what it would look like if I did change that relationship with the mirror. So I think that was why it was just coming from this place of curiosity. And so And the exact steps that I took to actually change, so essentially it was like 3 things. So first step was to actually just decide I'm gonna do this experiment. Like I'm gonna try and change this. Like, what do I have to lose? At the moment, this is a fun part of my life. If I don't change it, it's not gonna make it get worse. And, like, imagine if it could be different. So I just made that decision to experiment. And then what I did was actually choose an intentional thought, like a primer thought for me to practice thinking before I looked in the mirror. And the one that I chose when I kind of can't believe I'm sharing this publicly, but anyway, um, was like, I feel happy, confident, and gorgeous when I look in the mirror. So I started writing that down, at least once a day when I do I call it my daily practice when I'm thinking through my day, but any intentional beliefs that I'm working on. So I added that into my intentional beliefs as like I feel happy, confident, and gorgeous when I look in the mirror. And why I chose those three things, and even that I chose the word gorgeous, I was like, I don't even know where that I don't know why that came, but it felt right, and so that was my primer thought. And so I was practicing that thought once a day. And I was also like trying to remind myself, like before I looked in the mirror, to think that thought of like, yes, I feel happy, confident, and gorgeous when I look in the mirror. Now, if I was doing it, I would probably actually write that on a post-it note and have it stuck on the mirror to remind me. But I didn't, I don't think I did that back then. And so that was kind of so first step was to decide to change. Second step was to have this primer thought. And then the third step was to just, implement it and to coach myself on those times when I didn't when I looked in the mirror and it wasn't feeling good, actually just coach myself and pause and go, hang on, and just notice like, oh yeah, okay, hang on. This doesn't feel good. I'm being critical here. And like, okay, I'm focusing obviously on what I don't like about what I'm seeing in the mirror. What's one thing that I can actually appreciate? And just shift the focus from the wrinkles or the dark circles under the eyes or whatever, I happen to be fixating on at that point in time, or, my moles on my chin, the mole that's growing on my chin, like, um, and instead of like, so noticing, oh yeah, okay, hang on, this isn't feeling good. And generally like going, oh, hang on, I'm focusing on something that I don't like. What's one thing that I can see now that I do appreciate? That does look okay. Is it like, okay, my teeth look okay? Like, or is it, like my eyes are like, yes, I've got all these wrinkles, but eyes are still blue. It's okay. Like, you know, and just, and that small shift of like every time noticed I was being critical, just bringing it back to finding one thing that I was okay about, like that changed everything. And the really mad thing, that, as I mentioned in the intro, was that I actually wasn't very long before most of the time when I looked in the mirror, the first thing I would see would be the positive. Like I would feel happy, confident, and gorgeous. Like it was really like, and it still amazes me today that like our brains are so powerful. And that if we prime ourselves and we can actually look for this experience and have this experience, even though, I'm 52 now, like, there's some wrinkles there, like there's some stuff that's not great. Like, but like from a, classical beauty perspective, or a youth culture beauty perspective, but I can actually now, like because I've chosen this and I've trained myself, most of the time when I look in the mirror, I do feel those things. I feel happy, I feel confident, I feel gorgeous. It's so mad to me that this is possible. If you're not believing, if you're like, yeah, Jules, well, it's fine for you because, your weight isn't a problem or whatever. Like, just know that nothing has changed about so nothing, like my weight has been the same like before I did this work, and I was finding plenty to criticize. Like, so you changing your weight isn't going to make a difference. Like your weight isn't the problem here. It's the thoughts that we think about ourselves that cause us to have this experience with the mirror. And like, because my weight was fine and I was still having this critical voice, but I was able to change just by changing my thoughts. And so um, it's really fun to do this. And I think like one of the big things with making that, so that those three steps, deciding to change, having that primer thought, and then coaching myself. one of the biggest things is just not expecting it to be perfect. And so on those times, like there are still times where I catch myself falling back into that whole old habit of being critical. And yeah, there are some days like I have slept terribly. Like, the dark circles are definitely more prominent. But even on like I'm able to not expect it to be perfect. And I am able to coach myself in those moments to still bring it back to even when I've had a terrible night's sleep and like, I've got a blocked nose and my eyes are all puffy with like allergies or whatever, there is always something that does look okay, and I can just redirect that. So that's the steps I went through. And so what it's like is it's actually it's really fun. Like, and I feel like it strengthens like my relationship with myself. I feel like I have my back more and I have a better relationship with myself because I have a better relationship with the mirror. And if I feel like yeah, like it's like more like I feel like more I'm a friend to myself now rather than being a critic of myself. And that feels really good. Like it feels like, and I feel proud of myself for creating that for me, and knowing that like and being willing to give it a go and try it. And it makes me feel really, I guess, and the word is like that's coming into my mind is powerful. Like I don't want to be like I'm here, I'm like feel a bit uncomfortable about like, bit boasty Jules, but that's how it feels. It feels really powerful and it feels really good of like, yeah, actually I did that. I changed that relationship with myself. And like it's kind of, yeah, makes me feel like, okay, well, if I did that, like this is so crazy. Like, what else can I do? Like it's really, really fun. So I just if there's something here for you, like feel like, yeah, like I really would like to be get to this place where I am more of a friend to myself and I feel better about myself, I just invite you to experiment with this, your relationship with the mirror and just follow those steps and see how you see what happens. Because like really, if you're already being really critical or if you're already avoiding the mirror, like you really don't have anything to lose. You can just go back to your old ways. And but what you do have to gain is it's really it's a pretty special thing. So, how do you get started? Like, what's the first baby step? If you did want to do this, well, I invite you to just make that decision to do the experiment and then choose a primer thought. So, mine was pretty ambitious, like a happy, confident, and gorgeous. Like, oh, okay, go for it, Jules. Like, but you might, if that seems like totally out of the realms of possibility or just doesn't even sound fun to you, what I would invite you to do is choose a primer thought that does feel good to you. So, it might be like, I feel neutral when I look in the mirror. That might be something that you want to aim for. Or I feel a bit less critical when I look in the mirror. Or I don't have to feel critical when I look in the mirror. Um, doesn't matter what the thought is, but like the most important thing is that it feels like something good to you. It feels like something that would it feels something like it feels a little bit believable. And like so it does if the thought is I feel gorgeous when I look in the mirror and your brain's like, yeah, right, then that's not going to work. So you need to it's important to find a thought that feels true and feels authentic to you and to your current experience so that your brain doesn't automatically reject it. So it might just be, yeah, I feel neutral when I look in the mirror, or I feel okay when I look in the mirror, or I don't hate when I look at myself when I look in the mirror. Like any of those, are a good stepping stone, or it's possible for me to feel okay when I look in the mirror might be a good one. Like adding that, oh, it's possible for me to do that. Like that is a good stepping stone thought. And then gradually over time, you can change it. So, like after a while, you might go, "Oh yeah, actually, this is possible," and I am kind of feeling okay when I look in the mirror. And then maybe you can drop the "it's possible," but you like taking a few iterations of your primer thought. It might be a good way to get through that. So yeah, that's my invitation to you is like, yeah, make that decision, experiment with a primer thought and keep trying until you get a primer thought that works for you. Um, and before I go, I have an invitation for you. So, like, if you'd like some help, like ending your struggles with your appearance, then I'd love you to join me in the Naturally Healthy Club. So, it's my 6-month coaching group, which gives you my together we discover your personalized, simple, doable process to change your relationship with food and your body and your appearance. So you get to this place where you feel in control of what you eat without restricting, like you find this balance and you get to feel good in your clothes and all, especially when you look in the mirror. Although your weight doesn't actually need to change for you to get to this place with your having a good relationship with the mirror. So with the Naturally Healthy Club, we enroll twice a year and we usually sell out. So if this is something interesting, make sure you get on the wait list. So just go to smp.to/NHC. So SM for Mary, P for Peter, .to/N for naturally, H healthy, C for club. Or just check out the link in the show notes, and that's much easier than typing in that in. So have a fantastic week. Just if you're up for it, playing around with this idea of changing your relationship with the mirror, and I will see you next week.